everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast. We're counting down the days to Christmas, and with that in mind, we will have a Christmas special of the SBK Podcast, one to wait and look forward to. But for now, we've got some excellent racing this coming Saturday, so a normal preview show, as always, in the company of Tom Collins and Ross Miller. And we have Grade 1 action at Ascot this weekend, and that's where we will begin. The long walk hurdle, always enjoyable, never normally that deep in terms of sometimes Grade 1 horses, but it is always competitive. 3 mile, half a furlong, as they always go over, and Ascot looks like they're going to have okay ground for this kind of time of year, good to soft, and it's led by the Genuine Group. Grade 1 horse, I should say, strong leader for Sean Bowen and Ollie Murphy, who are flying, and we can give you odds at 9-4 for that horse. We've got an interesting lineup of horses behind. They've got the Wall Park now in the colours of JP McManus, sent over by Gordon Elliott with Mark Walsh on board, who's 11-4. Shoot First is in here for the Charles Burns team. He's a 7-1 chance. Then you've got last year's winners Crambo, 8-1. Hidden Valley Lake, another runner for for the Irish Henry de Bromhead, 8-1. 10-1 for Blue King Drew. And bigger the rest. I'll go over to the long far traveling TC in Saudi, I think it is, who's probably feels like quite a long way from seeing 3 mile hurdlers at this level. But I know you studied this TC, and as I said, a genuine Grade 1 horse in the pack and strong leader, and then others sort of vying for that. It always feels like that kind of division, doesn't it? That horses that are sort of chancing their arm in there. Do you think strong leader, I believe, quite good value at 9-4, considering what he's achieved? How do you look at it?
Yeah, I don't disagree. He deserves to have the logical kind of market share. He's got 30% market share, around 9-4. I think that's very fair. He proved last year at Aintree that he's a top quality kind of long distance hurdler. His reappearance run was perfectly fine, and he's going to be fully tuned for this. So I have nothing really against strong leader, aside from the fact that I don't want to be taking short price in this and our other feature race that we're going to cover in due course, where I do like the favourite. So I'm going to look instead for a bit of each way alternative, maybe some place money, but also a horse that can logically win the race if strong leader does underperform. And the horse that I'm going to go for is Katira for Dan and Harry Skelton. We know the Skeltons are targeting these big Saturday races, not only for the trainer and jockey competition that is going to be running throughout the Saturdays in this jump season, but just for prize money in general. Dan's obviously trying to be top trainer again. So Katira's their option in the long walk, and she's around 12-1, 10-1 in places. I feel like that's a perfectly fine price. The crucial aspect to Katira is the good ground or good to soft ground. Now, obviously, I'm a million miles away from home, but the forecast I've seen suggests there's only limited rainfall on Friday, Saturday. I could be wrong. Maybe you guys will correct me in a minute, but it looks like the ground will be on the good side anyway, and that'll be very much suitable for Katira. Her recent effort was perfectly plausible. She was against the mares, but it was a good victory. And last year, actually, in a couple of runs at Aintree, she ran against the boys, and she was very competitive. So I don't think you should write her off at all in this company. Yes, strong leader is the horse to beat, but I'm happy to take 12-1 each way on Katira and hopefully get a place.
I'm trying to wrap my mind the last time a mare won this race, or if they have. I can't seem to think of one off the top of my head. In the last 10 years, certainly there hasn't been. So it'll be some achievement, but I suppose it's a different shape up of horses nowadays. We no longer have the grand old type Paisley Park. You've got a lot of young pretenders. The oldest horse in this field is an 8-year-old, and that's Botox Has, who's the outsider of the pack. You've got the 7-year-old strong leader, and then the Wall Park, I think we should probably touch on, Ross, a horse that at Galway, when he won, I think it was his second or third straight victory in the row, Gordon Elliott was saying this horse is one for the attempts. And now he's going straight into a Grade 1 after his recent victory at Cheltenham. He's a horse that's quite extraordinary to watch. He's on and off the bridle throughout his races, which we do find with horses like that. But it's a mighty, mighty jump into a race like this. But I suppose this kind of division, as we feel like we always say, is really there for the taking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you referred to strong leader as the genuine Grade 1 former, which he is. There's an argument to say that the Stayers division hasn't had a genuine Grade 1 former for a while. It's been pretty boring to watch, quite frankly. The Wall Part, I think, often with horses that JP buys, you've got to allow yourself to think that they've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you, working out the form, because there's very few that they buy that have got form that don't go on to achieve something. The Shunter, for example, was a good purchase. You can go back through it. There's very few that failed to hit the target, unlike some other operations, particularly in Ireland. So the Warpark's gone from 129 to 152. He's probably quite hard to assess because, like you said, he hits a flat spot. I mean, at Cheltenham last time, if you watch the last half furlong, you think he's hosed up. If you watch him turn in, you think he's going to struggle to make the frame. So it is quite a hard one to get hold of, and because of that, that puts me off Strong Leader, who is quite rightly the favourite. But you look at his form. He beat Hidden Valley Lake last year, and Buddy won in the Liverpool hurdle. He beat Montmorel in the long distance hurdle at Newbury. Sorry. It's not great form, but then you're trying to find something to beat him. But I do think the Wall Park, I think it's interesting they've gone to this because you're looking to see whether JP is going to plot him to get him bit down in the handicap so he gets a nice mark for the per temps. They clearly think this is a horse on the upgrade. So I wanted to look away from those two just because I found it hard to pick between them. Cranbo is last year's winner. If you'd have said last year he'd go off at 8-1 for the race the following year, you'd have taken that, wouldn't you? But his form did fall off a cliff. Fergal O'Brien, I read, said that he felt that he'd had a hard season and that's perhaps why he didn't maintain his form. But I felt the race last year developed into a bit of a sprint. They crawled and they sprinted, and he out-sprinted Old Legs in Paisley Park and Dash or Drasher. A stronger run race might suit him, and I think it's going to need to be a stronger race because I'm concerned he might be a bit free through the early stages. But Fergal O'Brien's form at the moment is 8%. Now, I read that he's scoping everything he runs and running the ones that scope clean, but that still puts me off. I mean, it's a good practice. It's an expensive practice, but it's a good practice. But it doesn't guarantee the ones that are running are healthy. A scope is not an absolute guarantee that they're tip top. So 8-1, I thought was an appealing price. I thought he would be shorter. Hidden Valley Lake, I think you could give a chance to because in the Liverpool hurdle, he got really badly balked at the last hurdle. He lost momentum and he lost ground. Took a while to get organised. Rallied quite well. That form would tie him in with Strong Leader. He was quite a decent price. I think Dara O'Keefe as well is going to really have a point to prove this weekend. Rachel Blackmore came back and jumped straight back on the Henry de Bromhead horses. I was quite surprised by that. But the one I came down on is an each way angle is Blue King Daru. He was really impressive in the Coral Hurdle at Ascot last year, beating Strong Leader, returned in that race this year, and just got out sprinted, given weight away to Lucky Place. I think Lucky Place is a decent horse. Now, everything he does suggests he's going to improve with this step up in trip. He was only 5th in this race last year, but again, it developed into a sprint. So although he was going up in trip, I still don't think the race was run to suit him. His form slightly tailed off in the second half of the season, but he had good form at Sandown behind Imperial Party. He was beaten 9 lengths, sort of, again, gave his running. And he was a 4-year-old last year, and we talk all the time about 4-year-olds finding it difficult in that transitional season. So around about 10-1 with SBK, I did think he was a decent each way chance if they go an end-to-end gallop, which I think is the most important aspect of this.
Yeah, it's just the question of Mark around the trip, I suppose, of just he's tried 3 miles before, as you say, in this race last year, but we haven't seen if he's a confirmed, definite stayer at this distance. But at around 10-1, as you're saying, quite an open-looking race. It feels like it's got that kind of element to it. So both TC and Ross happy to go for that sort of angle. Katira 12-1, Blue King Daru 10-1 with SBK. So these are horses that you can get involved with. And a reminder, if you do with SBK, they're offering 20% ACCA boost across all of Saturday's racing. And again, like last week, it's a 4-leg minimum. You have to opt in, but a couple of horses there if you'd like. We've had a good look at this race, and I think that there's a case to be made for a couple of them. We'll head into the Silver Cup because another race that we wanted to feature for you, and a race that we've got 8 runners, so it's just about got a good betting feel to it. And we've got potentially another opportunity for Venetia Williams and Charlie Deutsch to show what they can do on a Saturday and have another big day with a horse that has won this race this time last year. Yeah, that's Victorino. He heads this market at 2-1. Trelawn for Kim Bailey. And I think a lot of us are wishing him well after the news of Chianti Classico, unlikely to race again. 4-1. He's got a couple in this race. The Changing Man is 9-2. And then I might ask Ross to help me. There's a French horse in the race, and I have tried to practice it, but I am really struggling. And every time I say it, it sounds weirder and weirder. But I'll do my best, and then Ross, you can let me know. Hello de la Barrière.
That would do for me, Jess. I mean, of the 4 members of my family that live in France, I'm the last one you should be asking for pronunciation because we still can end up with strange orders when I'm left to carry the order in France. But yeah, that sounds about right. He's an interesting horse. He's quite a difficult one to get hold of. He's not won since April, May 2022, but he's run some really big races. Like he was runner up behind Los Angeles Bleu, who's a very good horse in France, a multiple group or Grade 1 winner. But he doesn't win very often, and he looks slow in a finish. He grinds away. I think if you watch this race back last year, they quickened, as they often do at Ascot, actually, over the chase fence. They do tend to run quite hard in the closing stages. I don't think he's going to have the gears for this, but he was an interesting runner. A couple of others I could take out. Trelawney, I'd love to see them go and win this for Kim Bailey, because I just think Chianti Classico was a real flag bearer for them, and clearly a horse they were very fond of. But I don't see him acting on this ground. I think he's definitely better on slower ground. Same applies to Heart of the Arc. Gavin Cromwell sent a horse over to be third in this, or runner up in this last year. But again, I think this horse is going to want soft ground, but you would always fear a Gavin Cromwell raider. And then the Changing Man, I could take him off my list. He ran really well in the rehearsal chase, but that was off 130. He's off 135 now. He couldn't win the rehearsal off 130. I failed to see how he's going to win this off 135. And I just worry about his jumping down the hill at Ascot. He can just clout one as he did in the Badger Beer, so I could put a line through him. So Victorino, wouldn't want to back him any shorter than 2-1. Like, I do think that's just short enough, because you have to take a view on his Hennessy run, where you could feasibly have pulled him up at halfway. He never went a yard for the first circuit. He didn't have a cut at a single fence. And then flashed home to finish third. And even 2 out had a lot to do. He finished really, really strongly. So there is a part of me that just wonders whether he's going to want to step up in trip, and he might be a sort of Scottish national horse, that type of horse in the future. But he won this last year off just a pound lower, and he won it in good style. And I just think that the Hennessy run shows, and I've been aware of it this year, the relationship between Charlie Deutsch and Venetia Williams, Harry Cobden and Paul Nicholls, and Nico de Boinville and Nicky Henderson say that when things aren't going right, these jockeys know they have permission and the faith of the trainer to ride the horse for the next day. They haven't got to prove themselves. Like, you see rides so often where a jockey has no chance of winning, but completely empties the cupboard to finish third or fourth, and you feel that's done more for them to show that they're deserving of the rides going forward than it is for thinking about the horse going forward. So I think Victorino probably came out of that Hennessy run with plenty of confidence. He'd have finished really strongly. He gets a really nice pull at the weights with 3 under through 5. Gets a £5 pull with him because he finished 4th behind him later on in the season. His season sort of fell apart after winning this last year, but he went to Cheltenham, ran over 2 mile 4. That was basically too short. Then he ran quite well behind 3 under through 5, and then he went to the Ultima and ran poorly there. But I just think this could be his track. I'm not convinced left-handed is perhaps the way to go with him. I don't think he liked the undulations at Cheltenham. So whilst there is a little bit of a concern, and I definitely wouldn't be going any shorter than 2-1, I think Charlie Deutsch, Venetia Williams, I mean, it's a Saturday race, it's a feature race. You could pretty much just put him up on that basis alone, because they're absolutely flying. But I do think he's still very well handicapped, and I would take the view that the Hennessy run was actually positive rather than negative.
Yeah, he's 2 from 3 at Ascot, isn't he? And I completely agree with you. I do feel that it's a horse that's much better at going this way round. Venetia Williams was very adamant that his jumping just completely let him down, really fell apart at Newbury in the early stages. So we'll hope that he jumps better. But as you say, he is 2-1 to reclaim the title of this race, which he won off a mark just a pound lower last year. So he's sort of waited to run a massive one again. TC, you mentioned that you're keen on him, keen to go with the horse that was 4-1 last year, but is the race what's it like compared to what he did last year, and in terms of the quality and the competitiveness?
I think it's easier. I do think it's easier. He's only £1 higher in the weights, as you've said. And I can't add much more behind it because I have got actually 5 paragraphs of notes about Victorino. Ross has covered every single paragraph. So I have nothing else to add. I do think he's better on a right-handed track. Didn't jump well last time. Isn't suited by Cheltenham. So scrub a line through all of those. I thought he ran much better than although the form figure was a 3, I thought he ran much better than the 3 last time up. And everything just looks in Victorino's favour. I'd much rather 2-1 on him than 9-4 and strong leader, despite the fact that I think 9-4 and strong leader is accurate, which tells me that, in my opinion, 2-1 on Victorino is a good price. That might be the one thing that Ross and I differ on, but we both like the horse. He is my more confident selection out of these 2 races that we've covered so far.
I just come back, Jess, with a each way selection, actually, which I should have given you. Phlegmatic for the Skeltons. Now, I'm in danger of going over the cliff with this horse, but I am certain that they have just been getting this horse's handicap marked down for a race on a right-handed track. I just fancied that Kempton might be the track, which is the one concern. But I'll just take you through why he's been on my radar since the end of last season. He finished second behind Outlaw Pete over 2 mile 4. Perfectly good run. Outlaw Pete's gone on to run really well for a £9 higher mark since. Then Phlegmatic went to the Topham, belted 2 or 3 fences. That test clearly didn't suit. And then they clearly got dropped a little bit in the handicap then. Then they went to Utoxeter, ran him over 3 miles. He's simply a much, much better horse going right-handed. They got dropped for that. They returned at Chepstow, ran left-handed early in the season, got dropped for that. Went to Ascot, ran him without the cheek pieces. He bobbed around at the back of the field, didn't really do a tap, got dropped for that. And then, having got down to 137, they then went and ran in a graduation chase over behind Pic Dory. Went pretty hard from the front, didn't give him a hard time, got dropped another £3. They've gone from 143 to 134, dropped £9. You could find an excuse for every single run of that, and very legitimately. You wouldn't be sort of scratching around to find an excuse. Cheap pieces go back on. Harry Skelton goes back on. He gets a pull at the weights with Victorino, £4 for 4 lengths last year. He should be there or thereabouts. As we're talking now, he's the outside of the field, around about 18, maybe even 20 to 1. I doubt he'll go off that price, but I think providing the 8 go to post, and I've got form with tipping up anti-post, well, anti on the Thursday when there's 8 runners, and then magically one comes out on the Saturday morning and you get 7 and the horse finishes 3rd. But I do think Phlegmatic is a horse that you've really got to take a second look at.
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down like that and you look at him running that graduation chase last time, you've got to be questioning Dan
there is a
Skelton's
3 mile.
methodology.
There's a 3 mile handicap chase at Kempton in January. I feel like that's going to be the target for him personally, but who knows? He may run well.
Yeah, was that not potentially the race that he won
Last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then there's similar handicap chases 3 weeks after, early Feb and then late Feb as well. So that could be the stint he's getting ready for. But if he's saying 90%, then why can't he run a decent race at a big price?
It's just the addition of the cheap pieces here that make. But the Scoutons are smart, aren't they? That they're going to want to get a price for their owners, so maybe they put the cheap pieces on, and we all think he's, not what he was, and then come Kempton he'll be better again. But yeah, I completely agree, TC. I thought Kempton would be the track.
Yeah, let's keep him in the tracker, and I'm sure we'll be on a podcast in the new year discussing his case. But one to keep an eye on, especially if Harry Skelton actually decides to be more positive, not just sort of dropping out at the back throughout the whole race. That's a look at the Silver Cup handicap chase. Some positives around the favourite Victorino, and a lot to think about when it comes to Ascot this weekend, which hosts a really decent card, I have to say. But there's racing all over the place. So with that in mind, I'll go to TC as far away as you are. What are you looking forward to seeing on Saturday from our racing perspective?
There are 2 jumps horses that are going to be my Napa Next Best. Before I talk about them, there are 2 horses running here, and I know there's probably very few people interested in racing Riyadh. You can bet on it with most firms. 2 horses that are running here on Friday that are very interesting. Grocer Jack, do you remember him? Used to be with William Haggis. He runs in a turf race on Friday, had a dirt prep for Jimmy Jerkins and now back on turf. He'll be a short price, but he should be a banker on Friday. There's also another horse on Friday called Rustam Basha in Prince Faisal's Red Silk. So keep an eye on those 2, but we'll go back to what everyone's kind of tuned in for, which is the jumps horses on Saturday. My nap's going to be a short price. It's going to be a Rocco who runs in the 150 at Ascot. Very small field, only the 4 runners. He faces 3 Irish challengers, but we know that Rocco is a very smart performer, and if he performs anything like his best, he should be fending them off. His run at Haydock on his reappearance I didn't think he got the best of rides. I didn't think he got a terrible ride like everyone on Twitter was insinuating, but it wasn't the best of rides. He was kind of ridden with kid gloves into the race and then asked to do everything in the final 100 yards, and he just couldn't muster enough of a challenge to pass the eventual winner. But it was a lovely prep. That would have shaken off all the rust. He's a good jumper, and I think he should be winning the 150 at Ascot. He looks banker material for me on Saturday. And then my next best, not banker material, but a horse that interests me based on a couple of form lines, is Gilai Joan, runs in the 240 at Haydock. Now, the form figures and the strike rate don't scream this horse is going to win. 1 win from 18 starts, 7 seconds, 3/3, just not a horse that's been prolific. He usually finds 1-2 good. And David Pipe and Jack Tudor have tried a lot of things and it's just not worked with Gilai Joan. However, he's only a 5-year-old. He's young and unexposed kind of for new connections. And I'm certain he's well handicapped off a mark of 118. He's run 3 creditable races this year. Firstly, he finished 4th behind some nice ones at Cheltenham. That was a good effort, and he was sent off joint favourite, which suggests most people thought he was well handicapped. Then he finished 2nd behind a subsequent Cheltenham winner called Double Powerful, who is trained by Neil Mulholland and absolutely hacked up to complete like a 6-timer at Cheltenham on his next start. And then last time he finished 2nd in a scrap, beaten by a horse called Solar System, owned by Jacob McManus for Philip Hobbs and Johnson White, who again is very well handicapped. So the form is there. Will Gilai Joan actually go through with the effort and win? I don't know, but I think this horse is well treated and surely he'll be winning soon. So our next best, Gilai Joan in the 240 at Haydock.
Okay, very comprehensive cases. Aroka, I'm with you. Really, really likeable horse, and has come back from serious injury as well. He's in the 150 at Ascot. Gilai Joan in the 240 at Haydock for TC. Ross, what are you looking forward to seeing throughout the country? Got good racing everywhere.
Yeah, I got a very often you're sort of trying to find a nap and next best, but I had 5 that I could have picked from. I hope I've picked the right one. I've managed to nap against TC's next best, and TC probably didn't notice because he's been sunbathing in Riyadh. But Solar System won yesterday actually in an amateurs race, wherever that was, under Thomasina Easton. So the form has been boosted again. It will kill me for a number of reasons if Gilai Joan beats my nap in the 240, which is Mildam, because Gilai Joan, I think, has been well handicapped. Actually finished behind Blue King Daru at Cheltenham beginning of last season. Is a well handicapped horse, but just finds ways to get beat. I've finally given up on him for this race and gone with Mildam. So you can sort of see where this is going to go, can't you? But Mildam, the ground is soft to heavy at Haydock currently with more rain forecast. I think it's going to turn heavy. Mildam's run 3 times on heavy ground. He's won 3 times. Soft actually isn't slow enough for him. He made his return at Huntingdon 2 weeks ago, ran a perfectly respectable race. It was a decent handicap hurdle race there. He led turning in, made a mistake at the second last. That seemed to sort of knock the stuffing out of him slightly, and he weakened from there on in. But that was his first start for 220 odd days. This looks, I think, an easier contest. It is TC's next best that is the horse to beat. But he loves heavy ground. He's not always the best jumper. I think heavy ground suits him because he can just pop away. Haydock will suit him because there'll be plenty of time between hurdles to get organised. He's down £1 for that return at Huntingdon off a mark of 125 now. And Jamie Snowden still flying along, 20% strike rate. He's been one of those trainers that has started the season and maintained his form so far. Gavin Sheehan gets on really well with this horse. He goes to Haydock. He could have gone all around the country. I think this is the one he's gone to Haydock for. So Mildam is the nap in the 240. And then the next best, I thought I'd go to Hereford, which is a really nice little track. A mare of Paul Nicholls called Regatta de Blanc was previously with Will Biddick in Hunter Chases. She had some really good form in point-to-points in Hunter Chases. Made her seasonal return over hurdles at Chepstow in a novice. Ran perfectly respectable at a time when Paul Nicholls were needing the run. I really fancied her to run a big race last time under Freddie Ginger, and she just missed the last 2, and particularly missed the last behind a horse of Kim Bailey's called Laura Supply. I think is a nice, promising young chaser, but she really rallied towards the death. She got bumped a bit in the weight, which was a little bit unpleasant, but she's back in against the mares here. Right-handed track will clearly suit. Gets an extra furlong and a half, albeit on a slightly easier track. I think she's a mare on the upgrade. Freddie Ginger knows her now. I didn't think he was as positive as he can often be. I think he'll be more positive here now. He's had a sit on her, and she goes in the 138 from Hereford, and I think she'll take all the beating.
Brilliant. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to seeing the battle commence between TC and Ross in that 240 at Haydock. So will you be with one or the other, or are you going to take them both on? So we'll see how that pans out, and we'll review that next time. I've got a couple for you just to add into it as well, in what's now called the Ladbrokes Hurdle, but has gone through lots of iterations over the years. The final race at Ascot on Saturday. I'm looking forward to this race in general. I think Cabral de Mathan is a very interesting recruit, but he's got a mark of 131, and I'm just going to nap up Secret Squirrel, because I think that he is a horse that if he jumped a slightly better at Ascot last time, he would have certainly have got a lot closer than the third. But that was a perfectly acceptable prep run into this race. He still sits on a very nice mark in the context in this. He's a flashy looking horse. He's the one that genuinely looks like a squirrel. Huey Morrison has won this twice in the past with the likes of Not So Sleepy, and Secret Squirrel looks like he could be another sort of type. He's got a very free way of going. David Bass always does a very good job with him, but I think he's got a lot of potential at that rating in what looks to be a pretty strong race indeed. And then my next best, I'm going over to Haydock, and Venetia Williams, hoping that she continues on her trend and has another good Saturday and all tracks that she's sending horses to. And I really like the profile of Intimate. Ned Fox on board, he's having a cracking season. This is a horse who returned to the racetrack and first run in a chase at Sandown last time, and I thought ran a really good race to finish second against a lot of very experienced horses, and his jumping just sort of let him down a little bit. This is a much lesser race. He's got I think that he's got a cracking chance off a mark of 114, just a 6-year-old, a type of horse that Venetia does very well with. They're always sort of made for chasing, and they've been jumping around smaller tracks over hurdles to bigger stages like this. And so Intimate is my next best in the 130 at Haydock. So we've got a lot for you to enjoy this week. And as I mentioned, SBK are offering a 20% ACCA boost across all of Saturday's racing. So we've got a good few selections for you to choose, because it's a 4-leg minimum, and there is an opt-in required. So make sure that you head to SBK for all the offers, and especially that one. We have, as I mentioned, a Christmas special coming. So I hope that maybe TC in Riyadh, you can go and find yourself a Christmas jumper. I'm sure there's plenty of them on offer there. We know you love Christmas jumper time, and Ross Miller, I'm sure there's plenty in that cupboard for you to go and pick out, because Christmas jumpers are certainly required. That's for the special that's coming next week. So very much looking forward to that, as we've got excellent racing in between Christmas and New Year time, as always. But before I go, all new SBK users, if you are a new user, you get £40 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. And as I said, head to SBK for lots of other offers and promotions throughout the weekend. We'll see you very soon.